All right, welcome everybody to RTL Sports Talk. Billy Haddon here with Matthew Lau, no Michael Buckheister today. How you doing, Matthew?
I'm doing good, man. Just trying to recover here. We'll get into that a little bit sooner, or sooner than later. So, other than that, I can't complain, good sir. Great to be on the show.
All right, well, since you already mentioned it, let's go there first. I'm just going to sit back and watch you quarterback this thing. Duke, Kentucky. What were your thoughts?
So, when you was on Big Blue Breakdown on Wednesday night, I gave a list. I took my time on the shine, and I gave a list, and I went through every position because I said this game was early and there was a lot of question marks. And for every position of every player on both Duke and Kentucky, I gave a good and a bad. I gave a best case and a worst case. And I thought, just like really happens in life or in sports, it was going to be a mixed bag. There was going to be some pluses, there was going to be some minuses. Never did I imagine that all the worst case scenarios that I mentioned for Kentucky would happen, and that all the best cases that I mentioned for Duke would happen. You know, for some people who didn't listen or aren't sure what I'm talking about. You know, I said for Duke to win this game and have a great season, Trey Jones would have to play like his brother Tyus, and he certainly looked like it. Other guys would have to play point and handle the ball. They had no problem with that. I said one of the biggest concerns or pluses or minuses, either way it went, how would R.J. Barrett play at the two? Would he get complacent and shoot threes, or would he take advantage of most of the mismatches? He balled out. He took advantage of every mismatch he could, which was pretty much everyone guarding him. Cam Reddish, he's typically a stretch four. Could he slide down and play that three? He did no problem. Zion Williams hasn't really played against top talent. He's always played at a smaller school. Didn't really get a whole lot of experience. The man looked ready. Now, he only hit a couple of longer shots, but that's all that they needed to get that emotion going. He actually often pulled a guy, even when in the first half when he really wasn't balling, he was pulling guys away because you have to block Zion Williams out anywhere on this side of the court. If he's standing at half court, just like you got to guard Steph Curry, you got to block out Zion Williams, because if you don't block him out and it's a missed shot, he's going to put you on a highlight rim or a highlight film with a putback dunk. And I said, how can Marcus Bolden do? Can Marcus Bolden come out there and act like a sophomore, or is he going to act like a third-year one and done and struggle? He got it done. He made a lot of decent moves. Now, obviously, he wasn't on par with the 1, 2, 3 players in the pick or players in the draft, arguably, but he came out there and got it done. And then I said, what about the bench? They didn't have a lot of depth. Could guys come in and give them spark? Absolutely. Jack White came in, and I think he had double-digit rebounds. If not, I know he was close. Other guys would just come in, and I know you can't rely on those guys to come in and give you 10 points in a game, but they came in and fed off the momentum, and it was like an extra dagger in UK's heart. Coming from UK, I said the point guards couldn't act like freshmen. They got lost. There was times I forgot we even had point guards on the court. Both Hagens and Quickly, you just forgot they were out there. They were being smothered. I said, Quickly, is he going to be able to take advantage of that mismatch of being guarded by a 6'7" guy and having to guard a 6'7" guy? I forgot he was out there. We had one shooting guard who didn't play due to a knee injury. Would definitely not have made a difference, because the only thing he can bring is an occasional three-point shot. It wasn't going to be enough here. Tyler Hero, I said on Wednesday night, Tyler Hero has to score a lot, because he's a volume shooter, and he's a kind of a liability on defense. The shots weren't falling. He did get a couple of free throws early that I thought might get him going. Never really did, and he got attacked on that lane on the defensive end. Looking at 2 plus sides, which I think didn't really pan out this Saturday or this Tuesday, but I think will pan out as the season goes. Johnson and Montgomery look like they were still trying to figure it out. It actually looks like what freshmen are supposed to look like, opposed to what NBA players look like that Duke had. These were actually true freshmen, and they struggled, and they showed some brilliance, and then they showed a lot of down. I think Johnson started out really strong for Kentucky, but once he started getting fouled and going to the free throw line and was missing them, I think he lost his aggression. P.J. Washington came out very aggressive, and I was very excited about what I seen. But that effect of having to guard Zion and having to deal with Zion the entire game wore him down. And by midway through the first quarter, he really didn't have much left. The center position for Kentucky, I will say, was the biggest plus and the biggest disappointment. the biggest plus, I didn't expect Reed Travis to do what he did. Even though he was smaller than most everyone else out for Duke, he still found a way to get to the basket. He still found a way to get some fouls. And when he got fouled, he found a way to make them. But Reed Travis is the cherry on top of the ice cream sundae. He can't be the ice cream sundae. So that was I was excited to see that, but we're going to need more if you're a Kentucky fan. Nick Richards, we talked about that. A lot of Kentucky fans were saying, hey, is this the year he made the turn? And he had in the preseason. But, man, he looked soft as ever in this game. He got blocked by everyone over 6'6". And then the only time he showed sign of fight and sign of aggression, he was trying to talk smack to a walk-on center when there was 2 minutes left in a 40-point game. He picked that time to show the passion, not when he was trying to go up on Zion Williams, not when he was getting lobs done behind him by R.J. Barrett.
Almost like Kyrie Irving, huh, with Jamal Murray. You get mad after he trying to get 50 after he gets 48.
You show the fight later. And, obviously Kyrie Irving's much better than Nick Richards. But, yes, absolutely. That's a perfect example because for the first 38 minutes or when he was on the court, he was lost. He was outmanned. He was outlost. He was discombobulated everywhere. And, he's the tallest guy on the court, and pound for pound is probably bigger than Marcus Bolden, but did not play like it. So I think my final point on it all, that was just kind of how the game broke down, and I'd never seen a best case for one team work and a worst case from another. And when it does, you get the number 4 team beating the quote-unquote number 2 team by 34 points. Now, as a Kentucky fan, I sit here and I think, is that going to be the normal for Duke? If it is, then the good news is Kentucky, every other team on that schedule is going to look as bad. The bad news is you don't have a shot of winning the title. If Duke just played the best game of their life and they can't really duplicate that again, the bad news is that loss looks even worse. The good news is you might have a chance in March. So I do think after 40 games, it's going to be somewhere in the middle. I don't think this Kentucky team's 34 points worse than some of the top teams in the country. But I do think Duke is really solid. Now, there might be some games where I don't think 40-0 is as much of a thing because, there might be one game in conference play on the road where those shots aren't falling. But I think if you had to have a favorite and a number 1 team in the country, it's got to be Duke.
Just a quick point to what you just said before I get to the other question that I want to ask. I was just watching right before we got on air right now. Paul Pierce saying that this Duke team could beat the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, I'm not always opposed or I'm not always for saying, high school teams or college teams could beat the pro team. Do you think that this Duke team could beat the Cleveland Cavaliers right now?
So a lot of people ask that. I hear it a couple years ago with that 2015 team. Could that team beat the Philadelphia 76ers, which at the time was really bad?
Terrible. Terrible.
And I'm going to say no if I had to give an answer. I'm going to say no. But I was looking at the youngest team in the NBA is the Phoenix Suns. Now, they got Ariza and they got some older guys that are going to cause some problems. But at the end of the day, now I know you got dieting and conditioning, which is probably going to be the biggest difference makers. On a lot of these really bad teams, such as Cleveland, such as I'm drawing a blank, the Suns. Most of those guys, if it wasn't a one-and-done error, would still be in college.
Exactly.
Josh Jackson will be a junior. I think Devin Booker would be a senior. I'm trying to think of Ayton would be a sophomore.
They got Ayton to be a sophomore,
So I think guys would definitely make plays. Barrett he'd probably score 25, 30 points maybe. Zion would get some highlight film. But I don't know if when Ariza comes in, if there's anybody that's going to be able to stop him. But just because he's got the crafty ways. He knows how to draw a foul.
I agree. It's just something about being a pro. It's just somebody being a pro.
Even DeAndre Ayton, who's been a pro for what?
13 days almost.
15 games. He's picked up something from Garden so-and-so. He's picked up something that Marcus Bolden hasn't had a chance to learn yet, that Zion Williams hasn't had a chance to learn yet, that R.J. Barrett definitely will learn, just hasn't yet. I'm sure – look, Devin Booker was good at Kentucky, but he really came on in the pros. So you take a senior Devin Booker, I imagine that man's hitting it from anywhere. So and he's just as tall as R.J., so the mismatch isn't there. It's not RJ Barrett guarding a 6'2" shooting guard. It's RJ Barrett guarding a 6'7" shooting guard. So I still think they'd be a great matchup. It just wouldn't be as lopsided as they like it to be. So I think because of those little nuances, you still have to rock with the pro team.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that as well. I just wanted to get your thoughts on it, being that I had just seen it before we got on. So let me ask you another question on this Kentucky thing. Most people know I'm a Duke guy, so I've talked about it yesterday on Popular Opinion, so I won't go over that again today. But for you, I know we talked on Big Blue Breakdown about this really means nothing for either team right now. It was game one. We kind of expected this. And I know your confidence in Kentucky hasn't went down off of one loss. I mean, that'd just be absurd. But what must Kentucky do moving forward in order to get these freshmen not playing like freshmen, but playing a little bit better than they did in a game that looked like they were kind of overmatched by star power or crowd noise?
So let me, the crowd, unless the crowd thing would concern me if that was a problem, because that was a pro Kentucky crowd. You know, the only place
that is a good point. That is a good point.
The only place you're going to get more Kentucky is at Rupp, and if your own fans shake you, that makes me nervous. I don't know how much of that. It wouldn't be a show with me if I didn't kick out a metaphor. So have you ever seen the movie The Dark Knight Rises? With Bane.
Yep.
So Bane,
that's my favorite Batman, actually.
Yeah, mine
besides
too.
That one and the Joker.
Bane walloped Batman, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened? Batman had to go live in a hole for a little bit, and Bane went and took over the city. That's what's going to happen here, because the next 7 games for Kentucky are against really, really bad opponents. And then after the 7-game home stretch against bad opponents, you're going to get a decent Seton Hall team, a decent Utah team, and then you get North Carolina and Louisville, who are rivals. So during this next month or 2 months, it's almost going to be like The Dark Knight Rises. You have Bane, a.k.a. Batman, who's just going to be all over the place. They're just out there just beating up everybody, getting on the news. Every ESPN is going to talk about it. It's the college basketball version of Bama. And then you got Kentucky, who's down in this hole, trying to crawl back to its sunlight. And it's going to be, because we're going to win every game. But the problem is, it's going to be one of those games that you can't win. If we go out, like we got Southern Illinois Friday. If we go out there and win by 50, it's not going to get rid of that Duke loss. If you struggle, it's definitely not getting rid of the Duke loss. And
it's going to amplify it.
Exactly. And let's not even talk about what would happen if you lose at home to Southern Illinois. Let's not, that's so absurd, but it could happen. But I'm not going to talk about it because that's just absurd. And that's when you hit the panic button. But I step back. So, yeah, I think this is going to be the first act. Now, obviously, if Kentucky / Christian Bale can crawl out of the hole and then in March slay Bane and get that win, then that's to be seen. But the next 2 months is essentially the first half of Dark Knight Rises. It's one guy tearing through a city while another guy is at his lowest of lows and is just trying to pick themselves back up and make the most of what they're trying to be for.
I can see that. Now, I definitely agree. Just a quick point on what I've seen. I really like Reed Travis. I think the other night, I think him and what was the point guard? I think he had about 20-something points. I can't remember his name.
Johnson. He's a small forward. Yeah.
Yeah, him. I thought that was two of you guys' best, best little bright spots of the night, because it seemed like every time you needed a bucket, it was him or it was Travis down low getting an and one, or just playing bully ball down low. I thought that's what really helped. But to some of your earlier points, I had said before the game that I need Trey Jones to be better than his brother. And I thought he did a really good job. The points and all that stuff wasn't there. A lot of stuff you don't really see in the box score. I thought he commanded the offense very well. I thought he put, to your Hagen's point, I thought he put constant pressure on him. Mm-hmm. It seemed like every time he got the ball, it was tight defense. And RJ Barrett, I mean, this kid I remember watching him in high school, and I was like, I don't know how he's the number one player in the nation. He kind of got like an old school game, but man, is he really good. He put the ball on the floor. He didn't shoot very well from three. I think he went 3 of 7 from three, but he hit the ones when needed. Cam Reddish, to your earlier point, I thought he played pretty good, being that he didn't play all season during the Canada tour. Zion Williamson is who he is. He hit his only 3 of the night. He hit a couple other deep twos. Going forward, to me, I think this team kind of looks like the 2015 Duke team, where they were headlined by 4 freshmen, and then they had these other guys, Emil Jefferson, to come off the bench and kind of help move them along. But me, myself, not overreacting to a week one, game one, first game of the season, type ordeal. I just want, especially being a Duke fan, I know what that means. We could be doing this all year. We get to the tournament and we'll lose to a 16 seed. That's just how it works. But good game from Duke. I like what I saw. I seen some promising things there. I think Zion Williamson need to work on playing defense without his hands. Bolden, I'm glad he stayed in school and didn't chase the NBA. I think this second year could really help him. But overall, I think I've seen some pretty nice things from Duke to take forward going forward.
So I heard on Kentucky Sport Radio, Matt Jones brought up a good point, and I want to echo that point to you, and I want to add a little extra to it. Depending on, and I'm sure as a Duke fan you have, and I'm sure anybody listening, unless they just aren't paying attention, have thought who's better, Coach K or Coach Cal. And then I'm sure if you're having a debate, which we'll say for a different day, you could bring up different points. But one thing I think is very interesting, and at least to me it made sense. Matt Jones said that this year, tell me if you've watched Kentucky and Duke, you've seen this before. It's just different uniforms. Kentucky's usually the team with the top 5 players in the country sprinkled in with a bunch of not so good sophomores or older guys. Duke's usually the one with your Keldon Johnsons, your E.J. Montgomery. How many guys have come through Duke that not even from a appearance, from a play style, is Tyler Hero? J.J. Redick, Luke Kennard, Grayson Allen. They just give you the mindset of a Tyler Hero. Duke, the 5th-year Reed Travis. That's your typical Duke team.
That's the Plumlee. That's the Emil Jefferson.
Exactly. And your Kentucky team is your one of, you guys got 40 games to make this work, because they are definitely gone. So the question is, and we can just kind of being quick through the last 10 years, Kentucky's made it to the Final Four with these guys, and except for 2012, haven't quite done it. And a lot of guys have been like, that's Cal's fault. And Duke has been hit or miss with those guys. In 2010, they won the title. In 2015, they won the title with a somewhat like that team. And then other years, they come up short. It's either like you're winning the title or you're losing in the second round. Mm-hmm. So I think Duke and Coach K and Coach Cal swap teams. And this will go into the feather of a hat. For example, if Duke comes out and dominates, goes 40-0, as a Kentucky fan, I'll be like, man, Cal kind of needs to step his game up. If Duke loses in the Sweet 16, I think it echoes even more what I like to say. It is really, really, really tough to win with one-and-dones. It just is, because you have to keep their attention, their motivation for 30-plus games with guys who have never done it. Not saying that it can't be done. They just never had to do it. John Wall was one of the best who ever wore Kentucky blue, and he had a great regular season. But when March rolled around, he just had one night he couldn't shoot. He had one night he couldn't stop his defender, or, he couldn't stop his guy. It's just one night, but it just happened to be the wrong night. And I think when you don't have anybody who's a senior, who's done this, who's been there, even a junior, and saying, hey, man, knock it off, you're having a bad night. When you don't have that, it's really tough. And so that's where I think this is going to be. If Kentucky comes out and loses in the second round, I think Duke fans will be like, yeah, see, Cal, it's not that easy with subpar guys. If Kentucky –
But see, and that's where I think, not to cut you off, but I think that's where Calipari excels more than Coach K, because – as we talked about on Big Brew Breakdown, Coach K was the one that was opposed to the one and done. Mm-hmm. No, I got my system. I like to run my system this way. And I think Coach K has had a hard time not really adjusting, because he coached NBA players. So he know how to coach talent. But when you're trying to do your job,
Right.
I think it's hard for him to implement his system with the one and done guys. Where Coach Cal like, listen, let's go get this ring and let's go do what we do. And I think Coach K is kind of one of them old school coaches where he's like on the back burner, like, I like my system. And I think that's why a lot of people struggle in Coach K's system, because Coach K is like, now he's starting to loosen up the reins a little bit, but back when the run that I remember when it really first started, kicked off, the one and done with Coach K was Austin Rivers.
He was a huge one done.
Yeah, trying to coach ego guys has never been Coach K's motto, which is the reason why I think he struggled, where Coach Cal can kind of monitor different egos. He know how to get it together. Do you agree, or do you think that's...
No, I do. But one thing I think helped that, because a lot of things, you brought it up with Coach Cal a little bit, and even though he didn't have a successful run in the NBA, he still had a run. Coach K never did. Coach K started in 85 with Duke or somewhere around that time and just wrote it out. He's been at Duke. So I think I see Coach K get a little bit more lax. Now, obviously, he's still stuck in some of his ways. I'm sure everyone is. But after he went and coached the Olympic teams, after he got the deal with a Kobe Bryant, a LeBron James, and realized, I'm not going to get these guys to change their ways. But that's why I think maybe that led to, you do bring up a good point, and maybe that's what caused it. Obviously, I don't know. I've never met Coach K. But I think that's one thing that changed his mindset. But would you admit, before we move on to another topic here, is this the most one and done team ever? Because this team really, yes, there is Marcus Bolden, but outside of the four freshmen, who everyone will say not only are one and done, are probably one and done top 10 picks, there's not, like, the seniors aren't even getting playing time. You look back at Kentucky, who you think would have the most one and done team ever. The 2010 team had a junior and Patrick Patterson, who was a big part of that team. That 2012 team that
was one of my favorite Kentucky teams, by the way.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
I used to play with them on the college basketball when they used to make the college basketball.
RIP on that, man, because that was the last great one they had. It was the last one they made, and it was the last great.
Exactly. I used to play. I used to play with Kentucky on that game more than I used to play with Duke. I just like that John Wall, Bledsoe, Patterson. Yeah. That team was loaded.
So, even Kentucky one and done teams, your 2015 that sent so many guys to the pros, a lot of those guys were sophomores. So I think this has got to be, because we've never really we've seen Cal get number 2 Anthony Davis, number 5 Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, number 12 Marcus Teague. We've seen them get number 7 Karl Anthony Towns, with number 9 Trey Lyles, and number 11 Devin Booker. But we've never seen number 1, number 2, number 3 all in the same uniform and all have to come in and just be that guy. Like, they literally have to come in and be 1, 2, 3. So this might be the most
nothing less. And nothing less. And nothing less.
If they are ever anything less, I'm just
because we only played 8 players the other night, and I think we only had to play those because Zion got in foul trouble early, and then Bolden got in foul trouble kind of early. So it was it's either you be good or Duke goes nowhere.
Yeah. Which, and if they can do that, Lord forbid, if they win a championship, you got to take them 1, 2, and 3, because to see how they're needed, they're going to have to. Now RJ Barrett and Zion Williams, will be able to be, instead of it being Batman and Robin, it'll be Batman and Superman. One guy can stand up one day, one guy can stand up the next. Cam Reddish, he does need to be Robin. He just needs to be, which I think he's okay with that, because whenever you've talked about Duke up until this point, you don't mention his name. Yep. You mention Zion or Barrett. And Jones, you mentioned to it, you wanted to see him be better than Tyus. Jones needs to be okay. And the reason I say that is he needs to be okay with life too, because if he plays great, he's not going to get the respect. If he plays horrible, he's not going to get the criticism.
Just like his brother did on that team.
Exactly. Those 3 are going to cover. If he has 6 turnovers and they win by 40, you can thank RJ Barrett and Zion Williams, because no one will remember. If he comes out and puts up 20 assists, people is going to be like, well, that's what you get when you play with RJ Barrett and Zion Williams. So, yes, he's not going to get the praise he wants, But
that's my Draymond Green argument.
Exactly. He'll never get the criticism he deserves. And I know he'll only be here 1 year, so it'll be a toss up on how many games that is. But that's just something Trey Jones needs to remember. He'll never get the praise that he wants, but he'll never get the criticism he deserves. And he just needs to be okay with it and try to go chase a title.
I agree. So let's move on to the NFL. Dez Bryant worked out for the Saints along with Brandon Marshall, Kamara Akins on Tuesday with the Saints. They were reported yesterday by ESPN. I believe Adam Schefter said that he will be signing his contract today. More than likely a 1-year deal for, I believe, in between $5 and $8 million. You think that's a great move by the Saints, or you think that they probably shouldn't have? They should have went a different direction.
I think it's a good move in the sense that there's no bad. I don't think it having a downside. You're already 7-1. You have Drew Brees. So I don't and aside from Michael Thomas, Kamara, and Ingram, you don't really have anybody on that offense that's just blowing you away. So you don't have to worry about breaking up too much chemistry by sliding Bryant in there. And if Bryant gets you a big-time touchdown as the playoff push comes, great. But you're already 7-1, so you bring him in. If it works out, awesome. If it doesn't, I don't see it having much risk. So if he comes in and he even just coughs too loud, or he sneezes too much, or he farts in the locker room, you can cut him, and you're still a 7-1 team that beat the Rams. You're still a 7-1 team that has a great quarterback with a great receiver and 2 great running backs and an optimistic defense, or opportunistic defense. I'm sorry. So I don't see. I think it's a good move in comparison that there's no risk to it. If there was any risk, I would say it's an okay move. But I don't think because when you look at that, you don't see. If he would have went to New England, especially now, I feel like everybody in New England starting to gel with Tom. And now that Gordon's kind of knowing his role and Edelman's kind of getting back, you don't want to mess with that now. I don't want them to sign Dez now because it's kind of a good little gel there. But Brees is just whipping it all over the place, and it could be me and you in Saints uniform, and we'd still be getting some passes. So I think it's a good move just because there's no risk.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I think, sign that guy who had 3 straight 1,200-yard seasons just not too long ago. I mean, that I always say you don't forget how to play football. You don't forget how to run routes and catch the football. I think, and some people disagree with me on this, but I always say I think what the wide receiver position is the easiest position in football to transfer over or translate over. You got high school, or middle school, high school, college. I think it's all the same. Just maybe the play calling gets a little longer. Maybe you have to stay in the huddle for a little bit longer because they calling everything out. But everything is still the same. You still listen for X dig, Y post. You listen to your assignment, and everything is good. You still run routes. You catch the football. The defensive back bail. You sit down. He bite. You go deep. It's that simple. So I think having Dez Bryant is a big plus. Not that they need him, as you said, they won 7 straight. So I think they're right. They're right there. Obviously, you got Michael Thomas who catch everything that comes around him. I think they said he came into that game on Sunday catching 90% of passes thrown to him, which is unbelievable. And then that game he only caught 80%, so his average dropped down a little bit. Then you got Alvin Kamara and you got Ingram. And, they only went out and got Dez Bryant because they had to put his name is slipping me right now, but they put a wide receiver on IR, so they need to go get him. I think this is big risk, no risk, big reward here. I'm right there with you. I think Dez Bryant's gonna help tremendously. He's not gonna see a lot of double teams because that's Michael Thomas's job to get all the double teams. So yeah, I don't see how the Saints could go wrong having Dez Bryant or getting Dez Bryant.
Right. Well, I saw somebody bring up the point in one of the social medias that I was in that said, "Oh, they're just using Dez to beat the Cowboys." But if I'm Dez Bryant, I'm okay with that because worst case scenario, I go out there, I don't really do much, they cut me, and I'm just as where I was a month ago.
Exactly.
Dez has turned down a lot of rumors that he turned down a lot of jobs.
Decent officers, yeah.
For the Ravens and for the Browns. Or best case scenario, you go out there and you catch 3 touchdowns on your old team. You get to rub it in their face. You still get cut. Well, now other teams may have saw you. Now the Eagles may need you. Now the Rams may need you. Now a team that's equally as good. Or shoot, maybe the Rams or the Saints.
Yeah, there's got to be an audition year for him. Got to be. With 8 games left.
So, yeah, let's pretend for a second the Saints are using him just to beat the Cowboys or maybe get some information from him. But if it worst case scenario, they just kick you to the curb again and you're right back where you were. Obviously, you were in no hurry 3 months ago. So I don't think it changes anything. So I don't think there's a risk to anybody here.
And now you done made a couple $100,000 for free, almost basically to do what you love to do anyway. So
right.
yeah, I think everybody
play with
this situation.
Play with the best quarterback in your career. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Let's switch over to college football before we get on our last 2 NFL topics. We got Mississippi State and Bama. I think this is a pretty easy one. But these are some of the biggest college games that we have this week. Bama, obviously number 1. I think Michigan State is sitting at number 16. Thoughts?
Bama's going to win easy. I mean, on paper, if you're rooting for Bama to lose or you're trying to find a trap for Bama to lose, one would point towards the Mississippi State game coming up. One would point towards the Iron Bowl at the end of the year of Auburn. And you'd be rightfully so by picking those. Those have been some spots that could, in theory, catch Alabama sleeping. But it's at home. It's at Tuscaloosa. I just don't see any of them being enough. I don't think Mississippi State has enough firepower to keep up with them.
So before I get into the real question I want to ask you, let's go to this other game. Let's switch gears real quick. I think Alabama is pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
Let's go Michigan State, Ohio State, and after that, after you give your thoughts on Ohio State, Michigan State, tell me what will your college football playoff look like? Top 10, or you can do just the 6.
Okay.
And then we'll just hit it from there.
Okay, so to answer what I thought was the first part of that question, the Ohio State game, I think Ohio State is number 10 in the college football rankings, and they are the worst-ranked Power 5 one-loss teams. I know that's a mouthful, but
I agree.
They are the lowest ranked. I mean, that's what the committee says, and they are upset about this. They are. I imagine they would be upset about this, and they're not a bad team. Even when the rankings came out 2 weeks ago, and they were behind my Kentucky Wildcats, I said that even in the down year like this, that's the team that's behind Kentucky. I didn't think they could beat. Kentucky has beat Florida, Mississippi State. I think they could beat North Carolina State, Syracuse, and I think they could beat
I do
UCF.
agree. I agree with that.
But Ohio State was behind them, and I think, yes, Ohio State got embarrassed by Purdue on a magical night for Purdue, but that happens. That's just, unless you're this year's Alabama, that happens.
Yeah, so that's college football. It's college football.
I think Ohio State is good, or at least top 6 good. And now that they're getting disrespected like this, and I know Urban Meyer is going through some real medical concerns here, and I hope everything's the best for him. But I think they go out and I think they make light work of Michigan State here. I think Michigan State's capable of winning some games, and I think they're also capable of losing a lot of games. I think this is a game that they'll lose, and I don't think it'll be close. To your other question, I mean, so let me ask you: you want my top 4?
Yeah,
now, based on my top 6, based on the picture now.
Or what you think. What you think is, or who you think the top 6 is. Who you think, or do you think the committee got it right, or do you think they got it wrong? Because you know how I feel about
right. So I think we're going. If we go top 4 best. If the playoffs, to me, and I'm just going to set this story up so it helps you think.
Yep.
If the playoffs started this weekend, the top 4, I think, would have to be, and even peeping into the schedule, cheating a little bit, looking into that schedule, I think your top 4 is going to be Alabama 1, Clemson 2, Ohio State 3, Notre Dame 4, with Oklahoma and Georgia peeking on the outside. Now, I do think we talk about this every time Mike gives us a Michigan game to pick. What do we say, Billy? They lose 2 times.
Yep.
They lose the game you don't think, and they lose to Ohio State. I think that's going to hold true this year. I think Ohio State. Look, we disagree. We don't really disagree. I think we're on the same page. Just a lot of us. You're a little bit more shocked by it. I think the committee is just 100% out to send messages.
Yeah, we both agree on that. Yeah, I just didn't like it. It was
right.
Like,
no,
oh
no,
my
absolutely.
God. Yeah.
So I think the committee has sent a message they've sent two messages, in my opinion, with this last ranking. They put LSU 7 and Kentucky 11 and basically said, see, we're claiming the SEC the best conference. They put Ohio State 10 saying, we want to see you. We think you're a good team. You're just not playing like it. So we're going to put you at 10. And either A, you're going to get your stuff together and you're going to prove that you're a good team, or you're going to prove that you're not in their top 5, and then it's fine. So I think they're trying to send a message to Ohio State by having them at number 10. I think that motivates them. And I know this is where we do disagree, Billy. And I for the sake of I love the playoffs and I want it to expand. And I don't know if this would help it expand or hurt its expansion. I think if Ohio State or Michigan wins the Big Ten with one loss, if Clemson rolls through undefeated, and if this Georgia-Bama game is a thing of beauty, and I kind of need West Virginia and Oklahoma to beat up on each other. They play at the end of the year, and then they could, in theory, play in the Big 12. I need them to beat each other once. If all that happens, I think they're going to send a message by keeping Notre Dame out. And I don't think they need to. Let me clear that up with you, Billy. I know we.
Of course, you wasn't saying they need to. You just saying what you think is going to happen.
Mm-hmm. I think they do, and then when they're like when the press is running at you, they're going to be like, just like they said, who was the school? It was a Big 12 school 3 or 4 years ago. I think it was TCU. They said,
yeah, they left TCU out of it.
Where's their conference championship? Now, obviously, your naysayers are going to say Bama didn't win it last year, but let's be real, Bama's Bama, and it's the SEC. They're going to when them playoffs come out, and you see a 12-0 Notre Dame sitting out at number 5, and that media floods the committee. Whoever the chairman of the committee is going to look dead in the camera and say, where's their conference championship? And it's going to be haywire because people who are for it or against it, it's going to be just chaos. But that's the message they're going to want to send. So I think, now obviously, surprisingly, they do have to play Syracuse, which could be tougher than they thought. And all this becomes a moot point because, God forbid, they lose a game. They're probably going to drop out of the top.
Yeah, if they lose a game, they're completely done. They have no shot. Because they want to eliminate that idea that you can get in by beating USC at the end of the year. That's not going to work.
And, even though, in my opinion, we've talked about this, the ACC is really down outside of Clemson. And I don't want to make it sound like it's down because I know they got several teams.
No, the ACC is down. I don't trust any team in the ACC except for Clemson.
Because and you replace guys like Florida State and Miami with Syracuse and North Carolina State.
That's not good.
That's going to take a while. It's just like in the SEC East. You replace Tennessee and Florida with Kentucky. That just doesn't taste right yet. I have to get used to it. I have to see it more. So, and I don't think it would make a bigger difference other than, I guess, the fact that Notre Dame would probably beat Clemson to go undefeated and win the ACC. But they want to hide behind that. They want to hide behind, and we talked about this, they don't like rewarding undefeated teams because they don't want to have to defend themselves.
When they put a one-loss team in or a two-loss team, yes.
So when they leave an undefeated Notre Dame out, that message goes, undefeatedness does not matter today. It might tomorrow, but not today. Conference championship matters today. Maybe not tomorrow, but today. And that's going to be crazy. And a lot of people are going to say, especially if Georgia beats Bama, and people are going to say, well, Bama's not conference championship. And they're going to say, Bama's Bama. They're going to say how's it listed when they tell you the list of criteria, other notices, other things
just Bama.
Yeah. Well, it's just other things you notice, which is a fancy word of saying the eye test.
Now, so a couple points here. I think I'm gonna kind of go in reverse a little bit, or flip. I'm gonna go back and forth. Mm-hmm. The problem is, I hate that the committee changed criteria. if they stuck with it, if they just stuck with one thing, well, not really one thing, obviously, because there's certain factors, but if they stuck with 1 year and said, this is what we're going with, conference championship matters, then I want them to keep that same, energy, that same mind frame when Alabama don't win the conference. Now, as we talked about before, it helps because Alabama credit is good. When they get in there, they're just probably not going to be a one game and out. They're probably going to go to the championship. Whether they lose there or not, the committee can say, well, look where Alabama got. I think Alabama is the best team in the country. Obviously, I think Clemson is right behind them. To your first point about the top four, I think Michigan is going to be number 3. I know we talked about it before. We both have said it that they lose 2 games every year. I think this is the year they beat Ohio State. I think one of the reasons they got Ohio State down there, obviously, you already mentioned it, and they just haven't looked as dominant as they were. Since that loss to Purdue, they struggled like 3 straight weeks in a row. And then they struggled to a Nebraska team. That just at home. That's unacceptable. I kind of figured when I did my rankings, I figured that all of these other teams would leapfrog Ohio State. I just did not expect LSU to be there. Just for me looking at LSU, I'm gonna ask you this question. Looking at LSU play and the 2 losses that they lost, the big games that they have won, do you think LSU is the number 7 best team in the country?
See, if we're looking at,
or what's your criteria for saying, I think they deserve to be there at 7?
That's the thing. Like, I think the reason the committee doesn't give you a criteria is because it gives you something to hold them accountable for. So what's good today may not be good for them tomorrow. The same reason a lot of college coaches
I definitely agree with, for sure.
A lot of college coaches don't name a starting quarterback because they don't want it to come back and bite them in the butt. And I think, if they give you criteria, if they put it on paper in order of importance, you get to go say, well, why is Bama in here? They're not in strength of schedule. Why is Bama in here? They didn't win their conference. And now you're like, Bama's Bama, which isn't a good excuse. You know what I'm saying? So I think they give you a list of things, including other things they notice, which is pretty much just the eye test. Then they get to hide behind a lot of things. Now, I do think LSU could beat a lot of the teams in the top 10. I don't think they could beat Bama because no way in
that's not going to happen.
I don't think they could beat Clemson. I do think on the field, if they were to play, I think they could beat Notre Dame. Now, that's where we get into what's our criteria. Yes, they could beat Notre Dame, but Notre Dame has a 0 in the loss column. LSU doesn't. LSU has a 2 there, not just a 1. They have a 2 there. So, but I think LSU is better than Notre Dame. I think LSU's defense could give Ohio State some trouble. I don't quite trust Burrow, but I don't trust Ohio State's defense on them. I think Oklahoma could beat them just because it'd be a shootout, but if the game's in Death Valley, that could change some things. So, with all that being said, if I were just to rank who's the best team, I'm okay with LSU being at 7. But if playoffs are on the line and you still haven't given us a legitimate criteria, I don't know where to say they should go. Because if we're going on the eye test, they're fine at 7. If you're going on win and losses and how you're doing your conference, you need to bump them back to about 10. If you're going over most deserving, bump them back to about 10 or 11. So
it's just for me the way that I see this stuff, and I do my rankings. Obviously, you always want to put the best teams up there. Just for me, I think you cannot keep rewarding losing. Like, I think that's my biggest point. Not necessarily who they got up there and what they did. I just think losing should matter. Like, and it seemed like to the committee, losing doesn't matter. Like it's almost seemed like losing matters less than winning. Like that's just what it seemed like for me.
No, you're absolutely right. But I think what they're doing, and rightfully, right or wrong, I don't know. They're trying to figure this out. They're like a chemist right now. They're trying to figure it out. There was a couple years ago that losses didn't matter, strength of schedule mattered, and that's when you've seen Ohio State going to USC. That's when you've seen these.
I think that's
neutral
LSU biggest
Yeah.
helper right now. Honestly,
So
the schedule that they played so far.
right. So now the tilt. If you start to tilt, and say this year, an undefeated Clemson team and an undefeated Notre Dame team gets in, which you could argue on how tough their schedule truly is. I think you're going to start seeing other teams just go cupcake route for a little bit. You know, just 4 cupcakes, win your 8 conference games, win your conference championship, go in there 13-0, you'll be good. And I think that's okay, but I think the committee wants to try to prevent that. So they're trying to find a way. To be honest with you, the committee, in my opinion, wants to find a way to have the 4 most entertaining, best-looking teams in. And they will twist their expectations and their criteria to fit any one of those. If they don't think Notre Dame's the top 4, they will say, you didn't win your conference, you didn't beat anybody outside of Michigan. If they want Georgia in there, man, y'all played a tough schedule. You played LSU, you played Bama, you played Florida, you played Kentucky. Boo, that was tough. Let's hang that right here.
And LSU and Kentucky both at home. I mean, on the road.
Right. So I think that
Florida too. Florida was in Jacksonville. Yeah,
Jacksonville. Yeah. So I think it's going to be that, and it really sounds cryptic, and I'm sure I'm rambling with that, but it's because there's no answer. It's the criteria is going to be whatever gets us Georgia, Bama in the championship game, Georgia, Ohio State in the championship game. In 10 years, if we can get back to what it was, one day it might be Ohio State, Michigan in a championship game. You know, it's going to be if USC can ever get their things right. You know, they'll be twisting ways to get USC in because that's a good market. That's a blue blood program. That's something that they want hanging there. And
that's why I think we need to go to, or I mean, for me, almost kind of like adopt the NFL strategy, the way they do it with the playoffs. I just think for me, winning your conference should matter. That way, and the committee should really consider this. You know, when this contract is up, I think this contract was for 8 years or something like this with the 4 teams. But I think after this is up, they really need to consider having all the Power 5 conferences champion make it regardless. You know, and then when you have years like last year, you can throw an Alabama in there to say this is the next best team here. Even though they didn't win their conference, we got Georgia in there, but this is the next best team. And I think that'll kind of eliminate a lot of this flip-floppy criteria changing that the committee do. I think they also won't have to answer as many questions because it's simple. Win your conference, ACC, SEC, Pac-12, Big 10, Big 12, and then you have a wild card who you think may be that next best team. Or you want to go to 8, you can have 3 wild cards. However you want to do it regardless.
Yeah.
But I do think conference champion got to be rewarded. It has to matter.
I think what you do, you go to 8. Now, hear me out on this 8. And I think this is going to be your end-all, be-all. Because, yes, everybody can nitpick if you're 9 or whatever. But let's be real, we don't care what number 9 thinks.
Exactly.
We don't care what, especially when it's all said and done. We're not going to care what Kentucky thinks. We're not going to care what Wazoo thinks. We're not going to care what really
UCF.
Yeah. Well, actually, UCF would benefit from this. I think we go 8 teams. Okay. I think we go 8 teams. Your Power 5 conferences, 2 wild cards, or 3 wild cards, with 1 wild card going to an undefeated, or if you get the UCF, Boise State type teams, whatever they're called.
The American Athletic Conference.
Yeah, if you get one of those who finish the season and say the top 20 or top 15, they automatically get one of those wild card spots. Just to say, all right, let's prove it. And maybe it'll be the last one. So, like last year, say for this year example, you got Bama winning the SEC, then you get Clemson in the ACC, Oklahoma in the Big 12, Michigan in the Big 10, and Washington State in the Pac-12. So that's that 5. Then you can throw in Notre Dame and Georgia and UCF. And then I'm okay with that lineup. I mean, I guess if you're Michigan, you might have a little bit of a beef, but you got 2 losses, get over it.
Yeah.
And one of them wasn't to Bama, so you don't have anything to be mad about right now. And I think, and then when and I looked at it last year, I forgot what the teams was, but basically you would have had UCF being the 8th seed, and if they got beat by number 1 Georgia or number 1 Oklahoma, stinks to be you. Now let's stop talking about them.
Yeah, exactly. Let's kill this talk.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely agree. So let's move on to the to NFL. Before we pick the Thursday night game, let me just get your thoughts. Jerry Jones was on the radio the other day. You know, they asked him about Dak Prescott and all this other stuff, and he basically cut him off. And he said Dak Prescott will get extended. Now Dak Prescott still have the rest of this year, and obviously next year on his rookie deal before he's even due for a new contract. Now I don't know if Jerry Jones is saying he's going to get extended in the offseason, or just eventually he is going to get extended no matter what. Do you think that the Cowboy fans or Cowboy Nation is just used to being mediocre? Like, because for me, I just don't understand why this early you would go out on the limb to say that Prescott is going to get extended unless you kind of doing some damage control, giving him a little bit of confidence and in hopes that he become the quarterback that you want him to be. I just don't see it. What do you think about that?
So, first off, I don't like Dallas Cowboy fans, so I don't care what they think.
For sure.
That's definitely
for sure.
I'm being silly a little bit, but there's a lot of truth to it. But the thing is, this isn't a football decision. And I know everybody's saying, what do you mean? It's football, it's a quarterback, it's Dak Prescott. In life, whether it be coworkers, employees, friends, spouses, significant others, we can either pick one or two type of people. We can pick somebody that challenges us, makes us a better person, wants to push, go against the grain, go against status quo and try to change you, maybe for the better, maybe for the worse, who knows? And they try to push you and grow you to what they think you should be. And it's a give and take, And then sometimes you pick one of those things, and the only reason you're with them is because they're submissive, because they let you have your way, because they let you say jump, they say how high. Jimmy Johnson won a Super Bowl, got booted out the door. Jason Garrett hasn't done nothing, and his job is safe as they come. It's because Jimmy Johnson pushed Jerry Jones. Jimmy Johnson wanted that team to be better. Jimmy Johnson had his own ways. Jerry Jones didn't like that. Jason Garrett's just here to say yes, sir, to Jerry Jones. And Dak Prescott's the same way. They'll be safe as long as Jerry Jones got a beating heart. Or he's so rich he might make a fake heart. I don't know what he's up to. And one thing I find very interesting, the buses out in Los Angeles with the Lakers and Jerry Jones with Dallas, as much as I hate to break fans' hearts, it's not about football or basketball, if you want to continue that story. It's not about football. When both those families make majority of their money from their professional team. So Jerry Jones makes most of his income through the Dallas Cowboys and Dallas Cowboys accessories. If you're a King of the Hill fan, you'll get the reference.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't care. The climate has shown that they can go 16-0. They can go 0-16. They're still going to be quote-unquote Americans team. They're still going to be probably up there in the top selling jerseys. They're still going to sell out that elaborate, fancy stadium. That stadium's going to be rented out for college football, high school football, semi-pro, concerts, basketball games, everything, Final Fours. Jerry Jones is making a boatload of money being mediocre, something a lot of teams can't do. And he's got people around him that are a bunch of yes sirs.
Yep, I think that's the biggest problem.
Why would he change it? I had this same conversation a couple years ago, and people was like, "Why don't the Lakers get rid of Kobe?" Well, the Lakers are going to be good or bad with or without Kobe. At least Kobe puts butts in the seats and sells jerseys. So keep him and ride it. Get as much money as you can. The same thing goes for the entire squadron of the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas is going to be Dallas. 0-8 or 8-8, 0-16, 16-0. Jerry Jones is still going to be one of the most profitable owners in the NFL. And he's in no hurry to change that.
I definitely agree. Dallas Cowboys is still the richest franchise in any American sports. That basically proves what you're saying right now. Also, moving on to this Thursday night game, Carolina Carolina versus Pittsburgh. Who you got? Both teams has been playing pretty good. What happens tonight?
Well, first off, I don't know when this happened, but I saw that Antonio Brown got pulled over for doing 100 in a 45. So I don't know, will that mess with his chance of getting to play tonight? I don't know. But as much as I hate to say it, I'm not a Steelers fan, don't really like the Steelers. They've been here, they've done this. I still say the Carolina Panthers are your Michael Bay Transformers movie. They're a hot ticket, but there's no substance there. This game's at Pittsburgh. I don't know if you've been outside where you live, but where I live, it's a little chilly, and I can imagine it just gets
it's about 75 colder here in the desert. 75, 80 in the desert.
It's a nice 40 here, and I imagine it gets even worse as you start to get up in Pittsburgh. So I think and you, like I said, you have a Pittsburgh team that's won before. They've won this division. They make the playoffs. They do have some trouble once they get to the playoffs, but this is old hat for them. Carolina's been here, been missing. I think this is when the show stops in. Now, I said that last week, and I was completely wrong, and I could be completely wrong again. This Carolina could be one of those 15-1 Super Bowl appearance teams. I just think Pittsburgh at home with the weather starting to change, momentum. Them linemen are still trying to block like crazy for Connor. I think it's going to be an aggressive game. I got to go with Pittsburgh here. I think it'll be like 24-17.
I got the Carolina Panthers win this game tonight. But that's it for the show. Matthew, appreciate you for coming on. As always, you got anything you want to plug?
No, man, not right now. Just had been a great show. Keep listening to us on RTF. And I look forward to having more great programs with you, Billy.
All right. Hey, no doubt. Make sure you guys tune in on Sunday, 9:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7:45 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, RTF Sports Talk. Have a good one, Matthew.
You too, man.